Alright guys, this is the aftermath for Manhunt 2. Now, one word that would describe Manhunt 2 for me to encompass the whole game would be disappointment. Coming off of Manhunt, let's just go back to Manhunt real quick. We have to go back to Manhunt because Manhunt was a great game. It was a great game all around of how the mechanics were set up. It was a great game of how environments were set up. Enemy AI was good. The environments were very cool, and not to mention all the weapons and different ways you could kill your enemies. I mean, the game's story was even pretty intriguing and unique for the time. And to go from such a high-level game, a game that was not easy, a game that was skill-based, but yet you could just throw skill out the window and play it whatever way you wanted to go from that to Manhunt 2, where it doesn't continue the story of what happened in the first game. It plays and feels like a completely different game that had Manhunt slapped across it for the title and sold on that. So my biggest gripe, it doesn't continue the story of the first game. What the fuck happened to James Earl Cash? He was a badass character. He was a character who I wanted to see what the fuck was going to happen to him after this game, after the first game. Our main character now, he is a giant pussy. I hate him. I hate his character. The fact that he's a split personality this whole time, the game telegraphs it right away. There is no mystery behind it. He's a psycho patient that escapes and finds out he's got something other going on inside of him with his secret personality that he forgot mysteriously. And yeah, it's telegraphed the whole time that he is crazy. So that was nothing like mind-blowing. I mean, look at the way the guy carries enemies after you kill them compared to Cash. He looks like he's drunk carrying another drunk person around. In the first game, Cash would pick up a dude, throw him over his shoulder, and run with him if he needed to. In this game, your guy can barely walk carrying a character. A lot of times it gets you caught, gets you killed, it gets you damaged, but you know what? It doesn't fucking matter, because compared to the first game to this game, the first game had a score-based system based off how many stealth kills you did, the times you were detected, how long it took you to beat a level, and all tallied up into a star system. This game does none of that. You don't get penalized on score, you don't get anything, because there is no score system in this one. And we'll get to that in a second of why there's no score system. Another big gripe I have about Manhunt 2 is that a lot of the elements of this game seem to be borrowed or heavily ripped off from The Suffering. Now, I've done a review of The Suffering, and I've talked about The Suffering in quite a few games of this generation because The Suffering was so good and so different, just like the first Manhunt game, that a lot of games tried to copy it after the fact. The Suffering's mechanics and The Suffering's gameplay was so good that you could obviously tell that it was blatantly ripped off here, especially within the first level of the game. You're even opening lockers the same way that you were opening them in The Suffering beginning level. Now, like I've said, I don't mind when people are heavily inspired and try to create something like that, but to take those elements all together and change your game to be that game, I have a huge problem with. Manhunt had its own identity. The Suffering has its own identity. They shouldn't be the same game. They shouldn't feel like the same game, or one feeling like it's a crappier version of a game. It just shouldn't happen. A huge gripe that I have is how Rockstar decided to just bend over for the government in order to get this game out. The fact that the game had so much controversy around it, to the fact where they were just trying to give it an adult-only rating, and Rockstar decided to censor the game up to a point to where it could get a mature rating so it would be sold in Target and GameStop, is beyond me. I know the games are supposed to make money, but it also goes against everything that I think Rockstar Games was meant to stand for. You can't call yourself Rockstar Games and then go out and do something like this. They censored the game so much to where it doesn't even resemble the first game. You can't even compare the two on how they look and how they play and how their score scenes are and how their kill scenes are and how their environments are set up. You can't compare the two. There's no way that if you were to show me the first Manhunt and give me Manhunt 2 and say, this is just as bad or just as awesome or just as good as the first one, there's no fucking way. Anyone that's grew up playing Manhunt, or anyone that was a big fan of Manhunt, if you give them Manhunt 2 today, they're gonna be like, what the fuck is this? That's how I would have been if I would have got Manhunt 2 when it first came out. And what really, really bothers me also about that fact is that the fact that it was changed from an adults only rating to a mature rating, and a lot of shit was cut out and censored, it wasn't that well advertised. It was not the consumers were not let to know that the game was so heavily edited down that it would almost be not the same game at all anymore. And people went and bought this at full fucking price. If anything, it was sold more on controversy in the news alone than what the actual game was anymore. The camera controls. The camera fights you the entire time of the game. Now, the camera controls and maybe the gun motion controls weren't the best in the first Manhunt game, but they were definitely passable. It was definitely something you could overlook because of how well the game was. It wasn't like the camera was fighting you the whole time in the first game in order to get around a corner to go do your kill. This game, I literally had to fight the camera to get around corners. I had to fight the camera to get around to enemies so the camera wouldn't get stuck on walls, in turn messing up my stealth kills, getting me caught over and over again. And then let me tell you something else about the stealth. They fucked up the stealth in such a way where instead of like how it was in the old game, you're hiding in the shadows, enemies don't know where you are. Now you also have to worry about a button quick time event while you're in the shadows that randomly comes up. It's not every time, it's not sometimes, it's just random whenever it happens. And you need to make sure you're on par and ready every single time an enemy walks by you in the shadows, because if you're not, you get caught, you get swarmed by 20 people, and you're getting stomped on. It's infuriating because you go out of your way. In the first game, I could go out of my way. I could plan out how I was going to attract some enemies to my location, or to a different location by throwing a brick at it or something like that. I could plan it out. I could use tactics. This game, that all goes out the window. It all goes out the window, and you're just sitting there. I might as well just go hand-to-hand combat. You might as well just go get the axe or the sickle, and you might as well just go take on all of them as they stand stupidly in like a row for you just to slash at them over and over again until they're dead. The game is also extremely boring. Like I said, the story was nothing cool. It wasn't something that was intriguing. It wasn't something we've never seen before. It was something very much borrowed from a bunch of different thriller movies, and also a tiny bit of the mechanics from the first Manhunt game, not done well, mind you, and just made the game overall boring. I could not force myself to finish it. We're talking about an 8-hour game just for the main story alone. That's not going out and collecting all the different stuff and everything that's in there. That's just 8 hours alone. For me, I'm not gonna waste 8 hours to play a game that sucks. You know, I played Spawn on PS2, which was a trial of patience, and the game frankly sucks, like I said. But this game it was boring and insulting. I just felt insulted as I was playing it. The fact that the game fell so low from what it was, and because of Rockstar's handling it so poorly, I was not going to commit to a game that was going to frustrate me the entire time. I already knew something was terribly wrong with this game within the first 2 hours of me playing it. You know how you go to play a game's sequel and you're expecting greatness because of how good the first game was? And then you start playing it and something doesn't seem quite right. But you're just going to push through and you think, yeah, it'll get better over time. That's how it was with Manhunt 2. Unfortunately, the game never got better over time. On a scale of 1 to 10, I would give Manhunt 2 a 3. It's not even average at best. It's a game that I constantly see people writing to me about on the first Manhunt video that I did, that it's a scary psychological thriller, it's something that they loved. You know, nostalgia can blind you to some things, and Manhunt 2, it wouldn't have mattered if I had played it back then, right after Manhunt. The game is not good, is the main thing. The game is not good. You compare it to the first one, because that's what you need to do. It's not good. Psychological thriller horror game, you want a good one of those? You play Suffering 1 and 2. Both games are good. Both games do psychological horror at its best, and the second one improves things that the first one lacked on. That's progression. That's what games should do. That's what developers should do. Now, the biggest fuck up, and the person that fucked up the most in this game, and you're gonna say, oh, it was Hillary Clinton. Oh, it was the media. No, it was Rockstar Games who fucked this up the most. Sure, the government having a say-so, the ESRB fucking up the rating system, all those things didn't help. But Rockstar is the one to really blame when it comes to how bad this game was compared to the first one. And how mismanagement of your games and your properties and trying to rush things out just so you can capitalize on controversy shows that Rockstar fucked it up. They fucked it up really bad. First, they fucked it up by trying to force push this one out right after the first Manhunt game came out, when they already knew well and good ahead of time that they were going to be working on Grand Theft Auto San Andreas during this time. The fact that they pushed it off to Rockstar Vienna made no sense to me when I was doing my research on this. Like, why would they do that? Why would they just not postpone the game? Why wouldn't they just hold off on it if they needed to? I mean, what came out after Grand Theft Auto San Andreas that was like huge besides the next Grand Theft Auto? I can't think of anything. And don't come at me with Red Dead Redemption. Okay, it was years after Manhunt 2 that Red Dead Redemption came out. So the fact not only that they pushed it to Rockstar Vienna shuts down in the shittiest way you could ever shut down and close a company ever, is when your employees are coming to work the next day thinking that everything is fine, to be turned away at the doors that morning by security. How the fuck do you do something like that to people? That's a huge fuck up. Second, then they push it off to Rockstar London. Rockstar London does what they can, but the damage at this point is done. You had a studio that was really Take-Two Studio, then relabeled to Rockstar Vienna, who had no real gaming development experience before Manhunt 2, and gave them this huge project, this follow-up to a really good game, and you gave it to an inexperienced developer? Why? Second of all, when the game ended up getting so much controversy to the point where you're censoring the game heavily to get it out there still, to where it's almost unplayable or recognizable to be the game that it was supposed to be, I don't understand why it wouldn't just be... I would have rather had the game shelved altogether. then come out and basically tarnish the reputation of the previous game. You know why no one talks about Manhunt 2? It's because it almost didn't even exist because of how crappy it was. You didn't hear anyone ever talking about Manhunt 2. When the first Manhunt game came out, everyone I knew and their dads were talking about that game. No one talked about Manhunt 2. After the controversy was over and the game was released, the game fell off into obscurity. No one gave a shit because the game wasn't very good at all. And the people that did play it, that were maybe in 6th grade when it came out, those are the ones that feel nostalgic for it. But like I said, nostalgia can trick you. The thing that makes me so angry and disappointed also about this is because 3 years ago when I made my Manhunt game review, I was going to jump right into part 2 being the Manhunt game review. I had the game 3 years ago. I was going to do the review. I start playing it and immediately don't like how the game is. Immediately. To the point to where I just didn't make the review. I stopped playing it altogether because of how crappy it was. And I was just gonna not make it. And 3 years later, you know, it's years later, comments are still coming in about the video. It's still one of my most popular game reviews I ever made. One I'm very proud of still. But I felt so shitty because what a tragic ending for Manhunt. What a tragic ending for the game review series where it's gotta be some giant tangent rant like I'm doing right now because the game sucks so bad. It's just, it feels so ugh. That's how I feel about the entire thing after playing what I could through Manhunt 2. It's just such a colossal clusterfuckle disappointment to me. The character is a fucking pussy. The game fucking sucks. The mechanics suck. The camera sucks. The story elements fucking stupid. It's just so disgustingly bad. And the fact that the stupid kill screen thing, that they censored it so much where it feels like you're having a fucking aneurysm as the kill screen is going on, really drove me nuts. No wonder why there's like a million seizure censor... No wonder why there's a million seizure... No wonder why there's a million seizure warnings before the game starts because of that freaking screen animation that happens every time you do one of the glory kills to the characters in the game. I felt like it was giving me a fucking migraine. I never thought I was going to make the review, and then 3 years later, you know, I'm going through my games and I'm like, oh yeah, Manhunt 2. And I'm still getting comments on the first Manhunt. Where's part 2? And I just decided to finally make these two videos. One, just the controversy and how the fucking game got so fucked in the first place, and then this, my aftermath review like I normally do, or just a giant rant. Because, yeah, Manhunt 2 is not worth it. It's not worth your money, it's not worth your time, and it's definitely not worth being in any kind of ranks as far as a good game goes. If anything, it just goes to show how Rockstar took something and fucked it up so badly. I would not want a Manhunt 3 after playing Manhunt 2. I'm going to be very clear on that right now. Cut and dry. There shouldn't be a Manhunt 3. If there was ever going to be anything, it should be a Manhunt remaster or a reboot of the first game. That's it. I would not trust to see a Manhunt 3 after this because the second story was so fucking stupid. So fucking stupid. Why would you just not continue the character story? Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a weird conclusion to the Manhunt series, but it just is what it is. Hit the like button, and I'll see you on the next game review.